Briget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, recently warned that a growing number of children are entering school not ready to learn, lacking basic speech, social and motor skills. And this observation is deeply worrying, but the political and educational debate has sparked risks of being both simplistic and, I think, unfair. The raw data may show that a certain percent of children are not school ready, but those numbers conceal a critical truth. The readiness gap is inseparable from the ongoing crisis in special educational needs and disabilities. That's the SEND provision. First, the idea of school readiness itself must be handled with care. It presupposes a uniform development standard at age 4 or 5, a notion that is pedagogically questionable and socially insensitive. Children develop at different paces, and the definition of readiness often reflects middle-class expectations rather than developmental science. What Phillipson is describing, in essence, is a failure of early years support, not the failure of children. And I think from my own experience, a lot of this is a failure of restricting access to television and social media. I was in a park yesterday, I think, and I witnessed two very, very small children screaming the most astonishing words to each other. One began with F and one began with W. I could, both were 4-letter words, and they were certainly not words that I would have expected from the mouths of, well, toddlers. So where did they get these words? Now, the SEND dimension, across England, special schools are full. Many local authorities have stopped taking new placements entirely, and this is where the private schools, which many of which have now closed or struggled to survive, have been so badly hit by Rachel Reeves' VAT. Demand for education, health and care plans, EHCPs, has surged by over 50% in 5 years, while funding has stagnated, and as a result, thousands of children who should be in specialist provision are forced into mainstream schools that lack the staff training or resources to support them. Teachers are struggling with 30 pupil classes containing 3 or 4 children with significant additional needs. And the result is predictable: disruption, burnout, and unfair comparisons that label complex learners as unready. And this in turn exposes the capacity crisis across the whole early years system. Nurseries and reception classes are overloaded. Speech and language therapy is rationed, and the government's extension of free childcare hours has not been matched by funding that covers true costs. The workforce is demoralised and underpaid, and Phillipson is right to demand better early intervention, but the problem is structural, not parental. There is, however, another piece of the puzzle that's often ignored in political rhetoric: the role of the smaller independent schools. And these schools, particularly those that are not selective or elite, have frequently absorbed children who fell between the cracks of the state system, and those with mild to moderate special needs who cannot access special provision but struggled in mainstream classrooms. Many such schools operate on modest fees, often less than the per pupil funding received by the state. They offer smaller classes, flexible curricula, and pastoral care that allows children to thrive who would otherwise flounder. Indeed, I worked in some of these schools. So these very schools are now under pressure from Labour's VAT policy. The imposition of the 20% VAT on school fees risks forcing further closures or fee hikes, removing an essential safety valve in a system already at capacity. This isn't about privilege. It's about provision. And when a small independent school closes, its pupils must then be absorbed by local state schools already struggling with overcrowding and unmet SEND needs. In economic terms, the short-term tax gain is dwarfed by the long-term social cost. The government cannot have it both ways. It cannot lament a lack of school readiness while simultaneously undermining the diversity of educational provision that helps children prepare, adapt, and learn at their own pace. It's back to this Brexit obsession. If you're going to leave something or abandon something, you have something in place in the first place. If you're going to abolish some aspect of private education or all of education, then you have a better state education already accessible. If you're going to leave Europe, you make sure you've got a system ready to take advantage of that opportunity. In both cases, we haven't. And now we have people muttering on or wittering on about leaving the ECHR, again, with no idea about what will replace it. This is a madness which is dominating our society. So that we need to have a joined up system of support, responsive schooling, and respect for difference. If Briget Phillipson truly wishes to improve readiness, she must address 3 urgent priorities. 1, to restore early intervention services, universal access to speech therapy, child development checks and parental support, expand SAND capacity, new specialist schools, properly funded and accessible EHCPs and training for mainstream teachers, and to protect those smaller independent schools, recognising their role in supporting the very children the state cannot currently accommodate and who haven't been fully certified. Until these issues are faced honestly, any statistic about readiness is misleading. The truth is not that children are failing to be ready for school, it's that the system is failing to be ready for the children.